on the call as well? All right, so maybe you can get started.
Yes. So, Raj, if we could hold for 2 minutes, I just going to join the call.
Okay.
Could hold for 2 minutes.
Sounds good. All right. Yeah. Okay. No problem.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right, good morning, everyone. We'll get started now. Can one or two of you confirm that you can see and also hear me well? If you can see the presentation and hear me well? In the chat window. Raj and Amol, you can hear me well? All right, looks like people can. Excellent.
Yes, Ajay, you are clear.
Excellent. So let's get started. My name is Ajay Dhingra. I'm going to participate in the introduction and the orientation session today. And, also with us is Raj Ramakrishnan. He's going to be your instructor. and he's also going to participate in some of the sessions we're going to have today, the hands-on one. And Amol Ratan, most of you already know, he's a training manager. Most of you have interacted with him before you got started here today. What we have in front of us is a very innovative curriculum on SAP HANA and NetWeaver Systems Administration, also called BASIS. A lot of hard work has gone in, both by myself and Raj and Amol, to put this curriculum together. It brings, our BASIS course, NetWeaver BASIS course, which we have been teaching for over 15 years, and adding to it over the last 9 months or so, the HANA curriculum, right? So I think it just brings a whole different dimension to the course, which, the previous batch really cherished, and we are sure that this current batch is also going to benefit the same way. Raj, if you could move to the next slide. Okay. So today what we're going to cover is the welcome, which we just went through, the coach background, the instructor's background, what is SAP Introduction to HANA, the course content, the syllabus which we have to cover, the training material which we use, our training methodology, why SAP BASIS, and then some basic SAP GUI installation and connectivity to our servers on how we manage that, SAP's technical architecture, and some of the SAP transactions to get our hands dirty, frequently asked questions, and then we're going to have an open Q&A session. Raj and I are going to tag team as we go through this, hold your questions unless they're very pertinent for you to understand that specific slide. Hold your questions till the end. That's why we have 20 minutes Q&A at the very end, right? So Coach, as a company, we are a SAP consulting services provider. We are a partner with SAP. We were established in 1998, 18 years in the making. The slide is a little dated. We have got close to, between consultants and staff, close to 120 members, and a lot of premier clients where we do direct SAP consulting work. Some of them are mentioned here: Camel Soup, AES, which is a big utility company. We do a lot of work through and with IBM. Fujifilm, which is a conglomerate. IPG, which is world's #2 advertising agency. We have got active partnerships with SAP America. We are a SAP Partner Edge partner, providing consulting services, training services, for the last 6 years. We have had that partnership. We are a systems integrator partner with AWS. AWS is world's premier cloud provider. We've got a similar partnership engagement not mentioned here with MS Azure for Microsoft's cloud as well. We're partners with IBM, a software partner with IBM, and with HP. We are a minority business enterprise and a small business enterprise, both of these certifications in the state of New Jersey. Our world headquarters are in Ramsey, New Jersey. We have a solution delivery center out in Gurgaon, India. That's where Amol sits. And then we have a regional headquarters in New Delhi, India. So that's, where we operate from. Obviously, for the benefits and purposes of this course, everything is going to be virtual. Everything is going to be done using Microsoft Live Meeting, and the whole course is going to be delivered on the cloud. So cutting-edge technology, right, virtualizing everything and delivering the training in a virtualized fashion as well is what's going to make it more appealing. to the team. Next slide, Raj. Okay. This is a listing of our partial client list. As you would see, a lot of dominant players in a lot of different industry segments and industry verticals, which typically is the case you see working with SAP because it's prominent in multiple industry segments. So just to name a few, Accenture, which is a pioneer in the services sector, business consulting sector, the PwC Group, which is world's premier natural gas as well as industrial gas provider. Pepperidge Farm, which is again a premier luxury bakery products company. UPS in the logistics business, Deloitte, Sony, General Electric, Home Depot, right? In all industries, insurance, healthcare, consumer packaged goods, medical, as well as media and entertainment, right? Right, let's move on. Okay. The business model which we have is the following. Our vision is SAP technology and software quality assurance consulting and training services. The strategy which we want to follow is that of providing technology solutions through vertical integration. That means we hire the best, both experienced and unexperienced hires. We train them, provide them with the right skill set, deploy them to our client locations or internal projects, continue to develop that skill set, and obviously, right, if you have invested that, we make sure that we retain those resources. And that's what gives us, the capability to be able to deliver services to our clients. Obviously, not always would you have people on your own payroll. You need to rely on your vendors. We have a very extensive database called CBIZ, which we have created over the last 15 plus years for both vendor companies as well as the SAP consultants in the marketplace. More specifically in US. And each time we have a requirement, which we cannot fulfill in-house, we leverage that. Our consultants, we have all kinds of models in place, whether it's a W-2 full-time consultant, we have contractors, independent consultants, subcontractors. Last but not the least, we have the right partnerships in place with SAP, with IBM, with HP, with AWS, MS Azure, Microsoft, right? That gives us the ability to rely on our vendors, our partners, and our own internal resources to deliver services to our customers, which are both large businesses, LB, as well as medium businesses, right? Obviously, SAP's own direction is to move from large business enterprise to small and medium-sized businesses, right? Because that's going to make a difference for them. So moving on, some of our solution offerings. These are areas, where we tend to specialize. We started with Architect SAP, and that still happens to be our forte, which is SAP Technical Architecture, Strategy, and Design. In fact, you will see that both in my background and in the way I talk and impart education to you. And you will see that in Raj as well, right? Because Raj specializes in the same area as well, SAP Technical Architecture, Strategy, and Design. This is the pinnacle of, where one tends to be after being a basis admin for, a lot of years. Remote SAP, which is Best Show SAP NetWeaver Systems Administration. This is providing SAP services both onshore and offshore, bringing about the right blend and providing systems administration services, what's called a best shore model, so that it's transparent to the client. You provide more mundane activities from offshore, and you provide late night support from offshore, and you rely on heavy duty lifting, new project work from onshore, where you're closer to the requirements. Then we've got Manage SAP, which is SAP Solution Manager Implementation and Consulting. Solution Manager, as you will learn as you proceed further, is SAP's tool to manage SAP landscapes, SAP environments, monitor them, manage change, manage incidents, manage the SAP implementation itself. So to speak, it's an ERP system for the IT department which manages the SAP product. Then we have the Turbo SAP, which is SAP's performance management service offering, where we manage SAP's performance. Any big enterprise resource planning application like SAP, with the volume of transactions flowing through the system, is always going to have performance challenges. They need to be mitigated effectively, proactively, and you do good sizing ahead of time as a proactive measure. You do performance testing, you do performance remediation, and then continuous monitoring so that you are ahead of the curve, and if you see any issues, you can solve them proactively. Also, it turns out in some cases it's reactive, but that's what we want to avoid. Assure SAP is SAP Automated Quality Assurance Testing. This is similar to performance testing, but functional testing. This is where the focus is on making sure functionally the application is working and behaving the way it should. And we use products from SAP as well as products from HP. HP has a very well-known product in this space called Quick Test Professional, QTP, which we use. Similarly, SAP has products in this space as well. Secure SAP is SAP Security Design and Administration. Security in SAP is a big area. Security administration. There are a number of different SAP products. They have their own security requirements, and then in addition, SAP has a product called GRC, Governance, Risk and Compliance, which is a product used to bring about overall security, centralized security model in place, and also to manage risk and compliance and the governance around it, right? More for security and controls, internal IT controls, and for audit purposes. Train SAP is SAP technical training, either on-site or in a public forum, this being more of a public forum. Similar to this, we have got SAP training, which is more specialized, which we offer directly to our clients, where we spend a lot of time ensuring that that we have very focused training in the client's environment relevant to what they are doing for their own employees or their own consultants. Then Consult SAP, this is our SAP consulting, which falls outside of the solution offerings we talked about earlier, which might lead to some staff augmentation kind of an arrangement, so it's a catch-all bucket. Since our strength is more on the technology side, typically Consult SAP would catch areas which are more functional in nature. Okay, so those are all the solution offerings which we bring to the table. Okay. Moving on, Raj.
Sanjeev Tawani
has left the conference.
All right, so from the standpoint of the instructor's background, I already mentioned my name is Ajay Dhingra. I've provided my LinkedIn profile. which the team can go through at their own leisure, kind of look at what my background is on LinkedIn. I've got 20 plus years of total IT experience, a lot of it beginning with big 5 management consulting firms, so close to 5 years with Pricewaterhouse, similarly with Accenture as well. And typically that kind of experience brings a whole different perspective because you're doing more management consulting, dealing with clients directly, and, I credit a lot of what I've learned today, to that initial experience. For 16 plus years of those 20 years, you have been doing SAP basis related project management, team lead, administration, architecture kind of roles. I've had 12 plus SAP ERP implementations, 5 in business warehouse, which is data warehousing in SAP, 4 in SAP Solution Manager, and then 2 plus in APO SCM, which is Supply Chain Management, Enterprise Portal, EP, EI, Process Integration, BO, Business Objects, and DPC, which is Business Planning, Performance and Consolidation implementations. Of these, 8 have been full lifecycle implementations. Full lifecycle implementations, you can't do too many of those because each is at least 2 plus years in the making. So if you've got 8 of those, that means, you've got 16 odd years, and those numbers kind of match, right? 16 years in SAP and 8 full lifecycle implementations. I'm an SAP certified consultant for a number of years now, close to 15 plus years in that space. I have my MBA and Masters of Sciences from Tier 1 universities in the U.S. and engineer by background. Did my Masters in Electrical Engineering at Drexel University, and then did my MBA in Finance and International Business from Stern Business School, New York University, subsequently. And obviously for the last 15 years, have been delivering professional education in SAP and quality assurance. That's my background. I'd also want Raj to go through and, give his background to the team as well, and then we'll continue from there. Raj, over to you.
Thanks. Sure. Thanks, Ajay. Hello, everyone. My name is Raj Ramakrishnan. So I have around 18 plus years of IT experience, obviously, right? So this is most of it. I come from a database administrative background, like a DBA, but eventually I moved into the SAP basis area, and I've been doing in the basis area in multiple roles. It started obviously with the basis administrator, and then move on to the technical lead, and now, as Ajay mentioned, we're working as a technical architect in one of the big 5 client audit and advisory firm. So in fact, myself and Ajay working on this project currently, and worked on multiple global implementations, right? So obviously when you're a basis administrator, so it's important you work through the full life cycle implementations. Worked on several of those, including upgrades, as well as, many of the performance tuning. Again, the challenge with the SAP is it's so complex to understand, where the issues are, finding at the right place, those helps. Also, I did my certification in Portal, and also, I am a certified architect from SAP as well as from the Open Group. I did my bachelor's in computer science, and also did my master's in computer applications, and also I've been doing it for the last 5 years, doing on the side is the professional training. I did both in the SAP as well as in some of the architecture sides. Right. So I will be your instructor going forward in the next 8 sessions. So we will talk about more myself. I obviously, right. So all my experience and everything, it's going to be there, right? So, making sure you understand, what kind of issues you might face as an administrator, So those are the things I can share with you, and what kind of areas you need to be strong and important as an administrator to move forward in your career.
Right. Thanks, Raj. I'll pick it up from here. Okay. All right. So, what is SAP? SAP is a German acronym, which was kind of translated when SAP came to America.
Has joined the conference.
To mean SAP, as it was translated to mean systems, applications, and products and data processing. Okay. It's the world's leading provider of enterprise application software, right, with hundreds of thousands of customers in 100+ countries, right, was started earlier by 5 former IBM employees. More than 80% of the Fortune 500 companies use SAP, which is a big number. That means it's here to stay. SAP's flagship product is Enterprise Resource Planning, i.e. ERP. But the core of SAP is called SAP Business Suite, and it consists of 5 products. ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning, being the first one. SCM, which is Supply Chain Management, being the second. CRM, Customer Relationship Management, being the third. SRM, Supplier Relationship Management, being the fourth. And then, last but not the least, PLM, Product Lifecycle Management. So ERP deals with all aspects of an enterprise resource. Finance, or dollars and cents, is one resource. HR, human, is another resource. Raw material is another resource. Sales and the distribution of it is another resource. Material and management of it is another resource. All of these resources tend to work out as modules in SAP. When SAP started to grow, it felt that, yes, we can do material management, we can do production planning, we can do warehouse management, but there is more to it from a supply chain perspective, right, on how raw material is procured and finished good is prepared. And hence, they took some of these things out and packaged them into a more robust solution, which became supply chain management. Similarly, as in the sales and distribution module, when you deal with customers and manage the relationship with the customers, it became CRM, so that you can manage the customer more effectively. Similarly, when you manage your vendors, when you do vendor management, when you do procure to pay, you procure from your vendors and you pay them, that becomes supplier relationship management, where supplier is synonymous with vendor. And then by the same token, as you design your products, put those plans in place, the schematics in place, the manufacturing process, the detailed scheduling, the production planning, and the life cycle of the product itself, that became PLM. And that's how the 5 pillars of SAP's Business Suite came into being. Each of these products has got modules underneath. The ERP modules, everyone is kind of familiar with. FI and CO, Finance and Controlling, typically pronounced as FICO, is out there. SD, MM for Material Management, PP for Production Planning, WM for Warehouse Management, PS for Project Systems. Similarly, in Supply Chain Management, we got Demand Planning, DP, for planning the demand, right? Forecasting what the demand is going to be in the future. Supply Network Planning is planning how your network, which consists of your plants and your warehouses and your depots, how are they going to supply for your assembly lines to run? Supply network collaboration. How are different aspects of your network going to collaborate so that collectively they can deliver and meet the customer's demand? TPVS is transportation planning and vehicle scheduling, on how you're going to deliver products to your end user or to your warehouses, or collect from your vendors, right, where raw material is in question. All right, so let's move on, Raj. So those were the 5 base products which made up which made up the SAP Business Suite. In addition to that, SAP has what's called NetWeaver, which a lot of you people might have heard of the word, which is SAP's framework with which all of the Business Suite products have been built. And the way to look at it is SAP's NetWeaver framework is nothing but like a chassis for a car. On that chassis, you can build a number of different types of cars. And your ability to go to the market relatively quickly increases if you have a good foundation, a good chassis. And NetWeaver is that. It provided SAP the ability to build on top of it ERP, to build on top of it supply chain management, supplier relationship management, customer relationship management, product lifecycle management, right? So they all run on the NetWeaver platform. The NetWeaver platform in itself has a web application server inherent in it, business intelligence or BW inherent in it, Exchange infrastructure, which is now renamed into process integration inherent in it. It has a portal environment inherent in it, master data management inherent in it. Right? And not only that, even some other products are built on NetWeaver, like Solution Manager, which is SAP's ERP system for the IT department, is built on it as well. Business Planning and Consolidation, which runs on a BW NetWeaver application, also runs on NetWeaver. But that's not meaning that everything runs on NetWeaver, right? Because there are companies which SAP has acquired over the years, and they very well could have inherent technology which was different than NetWeaver and has not moved over to NetWeaver, or maybe SAP does not feel that it's beneficial to move them over to NetWeaver, but rather focus on the functionality. And the biggest of those applications is business objects and the suite of applications in the BOBJ or BO space. They are all based upon the original business objects technology, which is not NetWeaver based. It integrates well with NetWeaver. And, you know, we've got a whole slew of products in business objects enterprise, business object data services, business objects federation engine. Then we have got GRC, governance, risk and compliance, which is a security product in the controls and security and controls space. And that runs on NetWeaver as well. As a lot of companies are focusing on, SAP also uses web services to a significant degree, and all emanated from the services-oriented architecture, SOAR model, which SAP prides itself in. And, you know, today it has got thousands of web services distributed throughout its various products. Okay. Raj, let's move on. Introduction to HANA. I'll pass this over back to Raj. Raj will talk more about HANA over the next couple of slides, I guess.
Yes, sir. So, obviously, right, so other thing, along with the basis, right, so obviously this training, if you noticed it, we, advertised as a basis and HANA training, which means it's not just a database we are going to use it, we are going to teach, talk about a lot about HANA as well, right? So it's equally, we are going to talk about, we are giving importance, especially HANA is the emerging market for SAP. SAP actually is the new generation of products, that's what they call. Before, they used to have R3, R2, R3, and now they call it as S4. S4 is the latest one, so which runs on pretty much on HANA. So we will talk about that. For even to understand that, so we need to understand what is HANA itself. So if you don't have much time, if you just want to know what is HANA, you just need a quick answer. It's a database. Basically, it's nothing but a database, but it's not like a regular database like Oracle or SQL Server. It's a special database which can run on the memory itself, the main memory and the server memory. But it's not just memory, right? So, in fact, Oracle or SQL Server, they do have the concept of running all the, transactions and data in the memory. But SAP is a little different. The way they use the memory is a little bit different. So they have this concept called row store as well as column store. So that's what it makes a big difference, especially, this product itself, HANA itself is created by SAP as a company. So which means they have, all the code, everything they optimize to run very well on the HANA, which gives us a very good performance. So what they say is it's around 3,000 times faster than a regular traditional, if you're running an Oracle or something. So it can run so fast because it uses the partitioning. So it uses, right now in this generation of servers, right? We have multi-core, like it has like 80 or 60 cores. So each one has its own cache memory, right? So we use that effectively and do the partitioning. So we'll talk about that, during the class when we do that. So it's if you want to give a official definition, it's a modern in-memory database and the platform that is deployable. On-premise means, we can run it on our own data centers. And SAP does offer it in the cloud, not just it's a cloud. Obviously, it's one of the other new technology, right? So everywhere you talk about that's a cloud, which means, somebody else hosts it, like even Amazon, right? Amazon, they host the HANA cloud, or you can do, SAP itself as a company, they host it. So if you notice it, the CPU, we have it increased from 1990 to 2012, right? So it's increased. Whereas memory, it's also, we have, better performance, everything is increased, but our challenge is always is the disk, with the traditional database. This is where the bottleneck, right? We call it as a bottleneck because that's where, it slows down because it has to do, if it has a 1 gig of data that has to be read from a table, it has to read through, in the disk, physically from the disk, and it has to do load it into the memory and then do all the calculation. But if you have all that data in the memory itself, so there is no need to go to the disk, which means we save a lot of time and it runs faster. So obviously this bottleneck, it's been removed basically from the computing of the database. That's the HANA strength. So when we move the bottleneck from the disk to the memory, obviously the bottleneck passed on to is, from the main memory, how fast can you load it to the CPU? That will become the bottleneck. So in order to address that, SAP, they are really good. They did a very good job in this, because what they did is, when you load it into the memory, actually the data is compressed. Let's say you have 10 gigs of data that can reside on a disk. It will be 90% it will be compressed, which means it will be 1 gig in the memory. Because the compression technology is very good. It can compress up to 80 to 90%, which means very less data. In fact, those you are very familiar with the CPU itself, how CPU works. So there are some cache, right? L1, L2, L3 cache, which is related to the CPU itself. Each CPU has its own memory. So that memory is called the cache, right? So this one, again, it has its own restriction. And if you look at this, it's the 8 MB, and you can see the latency, right? This is the latency when computing needs to be done. So how fast it can get to it, right? So there is a 20 nanosecond for the L3 cache. So if you have something in the L1 cache, that's going to be obviously, really, really fast because it has only 2 nanoseconds compared to the L3. And you compare to the main memory itself, right? It says 100 to 400 cycles, so which means it's really, really fast you're doing from the L1 or L2 cache. So SAP does that, exactly does that. It loads all this data, the small, getting into this small memory. It can load it in the L3 cache so that the executions can be really fast. So it's not, obviously, right, this is all started when the HANA requirement itself, it started when the BW, Business Warehouse, SAP Business Warehouse is one of the products which Ajay mentioned, right? So that product is, it's called a OLAP. Obviously, it's like a data warehouse. We get the data from different systems. That means it's a lot of data and we have to do analysis on it, get some feedback to the management or something saying, what is the, how much sales we did in the last 6 years. So those kind of calculations, right? So those things, it's really helpful because everything runs on the memory. That's the current, in fact, if you ask any SAP implementation right now, they will say that BW is slow or, it's not up to the mark. That is actually, they fixed it. SAP, they actually started for the BW, obviously, but later realized its potential. So obviously they moved it to the OLTP. OLTP is the online transaction processing, like ECC system or SCM system. So they started to use it, and they came up with the newest generation of systems. They call it as S4, and they modified some of the code as well to give us very good, fast performing as well as simplified systems. So we'll talk about those the classes in more detail. So obviously you can see from like a 1 million cycles down to probably 35 to 40 cycles, or even worst case it could be 100 to 400 cycles. So we have that's the speed we are talking about, 3,000 times faster. And memory is getting cheaper, right? Nowadays, as every year you can see, the memory is getting, obviously, megabytes, we increase to terabytes, and even, they talk about next thing is petabytes. So nowadays, right, so like they call it the big data. A lot of companies, they use this big data. You might have heard of it, right? Big data is the other technology that's happening. So SAP HANA is a very good, supports the big data because it can handle all this data that's collected from the big data, like UPS. UPS, they do a, very good big data, right? So they have this, in fact, for UPS, they did this one study where they have this product, because they have this brown trucks, they call it brown trucks, right? So it's all on the road. They have around 16.3 million packages, that's been done, and there are thousands of trucks on the road. So they have this device, it gets the data when it's delivered. Plus, each truck has its own GPS and it collects information, how speed the truck goes, how much braking is done, how often they stop, what kind of turns they do, right turns, left turns, all this they analyze, right? So these are all, like, if you look at it, that's a lot of data, There are thousands of trucks on the road, and it's on every day, right? Even 24/7 it's happening. So they have to get all this data. But getting is one thing, right? So you're getting the data from all the telemetrics and those data, but then, it's around, that goes not just terabytes or gigabytes, terabytes, and now it's petabytes. They have it like around 16 petabytes, but they need a good platform to analyze it. So come up with, solution to optimize their route. So in fact, what they did is UPS, they saved like 1 mile, for each truck. So that resulted in like around, the company saved around $30 million per year. So that much money they talk about, because even though it's 1 mile per truck, it's a lot. But you need a platform that can support those kind of analysis. That HANA can do it, because it can do all this data quick and in real time, a lot of things can happen. So I mentioned about this row store and column store. That's the very innovative technology what SAP did with this HANA product. So in fact, all our database, if you take Oracle or SQL Server, those are all row-based database. That's what we do always, right? So it's written in the disk, it's the rows, every row. But what SAP came with is the column store, where the data is stored based on each column. You take any table, those who are familiar with the database itself, it consists of rows and columns. So you take one row, first column, you put it there, and then next column, so that if you notice it, obviously there is a lot of, compression can be done. For instance, here this is like, we just have it like few data. Right now, if you notice it, there are just only US, right? So which means it's a duplication, which means you don't have to write it twice. I can just write it once, and I have some kind of a pointer which tells, this US is occurring like 10,000 times. So those kind of compression, that's what the compression is. That's how they achieve the compression, So instead of repeating the data, so they just, write it once and then have some kind of a reference to it, saying how many times it occurs. So again, this is a big topic. I don't want to, go much deep into it as also, right? So again, just remember, HANA is a database, and it's as the, some of the row store, column store technologies. We will talk about it, and then they have the very good partitioning of the data as well, right? So it's you can partition it, so you can get the data. Another advantage of partitioning is, you can put all the CPU cores into action. Each CPU can handle a set of data which is getting it from its own partition. So which means it's not waiting for other resource to be freed up, because each one has its own cache, and it can calculate its own part. So those at the very high level. Let's move on. So I can just talk about this as well. Codes, in fact, in the recent months, we are, like as I mentioned, we are trying to get this HANA into our solutions and things like that. So we have this BW. They call it as a BW on HANA. If you noticed it, a lot of places they meant as a BWOH. It stands for BW on HANA. So which means a BW SAP server, it's running on the HANA database. So that is different than, like a S4, so S4 or something. So obviously this HANA, it runs only on the Linux environment. Currently it's only on the Linux or Linux environment. So there are two kinds of flavors. If you noticed, Linux has SUSE Linux or Red Hat. Here we use the Red Hat Linux. And we have the HANA SPS 9 installed, and in fact there are new releases also installed. We came out, and then we have the NetWeaver platform itself, which is consisting of BW. This is what the training is going to be. We will have a BW NetWeaver 7.4 along with the HANA as a database, and we will talk about SAP, how SAP works. And then the HANA itself, right? How it interacts, how do you, monitor and, do the performance analysis. On top of it, we are going to talk about this SLT, right? So these are all some other things, you don't get it from other trainings. In fact, we do have the SLT. SLT is for the SAP landscape transformation. This is another emerging area. You get the data real time. The significance of this product is, you're getting the data from source, right? Source like ECC, how many, purchase orders we created, all those, it's in the ECC system. But we want to get it into the BW system so that, we can run the reports based on it instead of going into the source system. For that, the SLT can bring the data to the BW system in a real time. When I say real time, you make the data, within few seconds it will be in the BW system. So it supports it, and it's also again, SAP did a very good job using these triggers and other mechanisms to get the data. On top of it, we also have the Vivo server, and also we do have some other tools. We have a public subnet with, to support the router to connect to SAP and things like that. And we do have separate, like, we'll talk about those things, when we to the later slides, how you are going to do it and the other things. So again, right, so this and all, for the training itself, what we assume is you have some kind of technical knowledge, not necessarily, right, so not necessarily you have to be like a expert in it. Again, the challenge with the SAP is you have to be knowledge of different things, right, not just the SAP itself. You should have a little bit about, Linux, a little bit about, not just Linux at the OS, but the database itself, in this case, HANA. And also network itself, what is that network means, right? What is IP, those kind of virtual IP. Again, you need to know some extent, but not need to be, expert. That is why we are here, right? So tell you which areas to focus on, from this is from knowledge, right? So these are things, you should know, like firewall, right? How is it affects a firewall? When you have a firewall in your company, how does it affect SAP, right? So you need to know which ports you will be connecting to, which port to open, those kind of things, we will guide you through. So Ajay, do you want to continue or do you want to take over from here?
Yes, Raj, I'll take from here. The course content, the syllabus, which we are going to follow, our focus is going to be on 7 different PDF files. First is the SAP NetWeaver. AS stands for Application Server Implementation and Operations. TADM 10_1, TADM 10_2. Similarly, SAP NetWeaver Application Server Implementation and Operations Part 2, which is TADM 12_1. TADM 12_2, and then focus on the Oracle administration for SAP, which is TADM 51, which we'll kind of cover when we are doing the basis part of the course, and then obviously moving on to HANA as well, which is HA 100 and HA 200. So these are SAP training PDFs which would be used to impart the training, right? These will be provided to you, and they're part of our DVD or the training material which we provide to you. Raj, you can move on. We'll spend some time reviewing the training DVD. We will be creating a Yahoo group for this batch, and Yahoo group is going to be the mechanism which we are going to use for the purposes of any communication which we have with the team, any questions which you have, any homework, any exercises, so that as a group all information is shared and we can learn from each other. There are very specific hands-on exercises which we follow, which we use for the purposes of the training.
Has left the conference.
I will request Raj to share 1 or 2 with you, when I hand it over to him, so that, he can talk about how does that material look like, right? In the basis space, in the HANA space, we have a custom installation guide, which is being used for the purposes of installation. Again, the way we do the installation is very unique, where all of you would get a chance to install on the cloud and install a system, SAP system on HANA on the cloud, simultaneously on your own server, right? So this is a capability which, no other company, including SAP, can provide relatively easily, because it is infrastructure intensive. A lot of preparation work needs to go into it, before something of this nature, can be provided. We prepare you for multiple certification exams, not only the SAP Certified Technology Associate, which is the NetWeaver certification, but also the HANA certification, HANA Tech 142 and HANA Installation 142. Right, so one is an installation certification, the other is an associate certification, right? So these certification exams will significantly catapult your ability to gain recognition in the market space. So very briefly, I'm going to take I'm going to share my desktop as an example here. Maybe do it as a sharing frame. Okay. So first, I'm going to focus on our training material, right? So, which will give you some sense of how our training DVD looks like. So this is how, can one of you respond back if you can see my screen effectively?
Yes, Ajay.
Excellent. So this is how a DVD looks like. It will have a knowledge base folder where we have got a lot of knowledge base articles, anything and everything a student has asked in the past, you know, which either myself or Raj have tried to answer, we tend to put in this knowledge base folder as well, so that, you know, people have the benefit of, you know, of what that material is. This is in addition to, you know, what we talk in the class and, you know, what we go through in the class. So case in point, you know, if somebody says, how is the SAP router set up, right? It's a very specific question, but we have that material here, right? If somebody asked that, Ajay, how did you prepare for your certification? I even gave them my own when I prepared for certification back in 1997, right? So just because somebody asked, I gave them my details, right? Obviously it's dated, but it's there. Some books, some e-books are provided to you. Again, a lot of these are the Bibles of learning SAP Basis Administration, so these books are provided to you. SAP McGraw-Hill SAP R3 Handbook, this indeed is the Bible for Basis Administrators. We have got some material on R3, VW, APO, Portal, SCM. Again, we don't go through these. These are just reference materials which are out there. Live meeting recordings. You will have live meeting recordings for each of the previous.
Has joined the conference.
For each of the previous class, including today's class, available to you, so that if you have missed anything, you can always go back and refer to it. You know, if you have attended and you still want to go and revise from it. Some people have asked in the past that, well, you know, can I look ahead, right? So what we have done is we have provided recordings from some of the previous batches. You know, it's WMV file, so, you know, you can benefit from it. But you know, it's there, but I think it's much better to revise than to look ahead, right? Because I'm of the firm belief that students who try to be ahead of the instructor actually fall behind eventually in the class, right? It's more important to be at par with the class, but make sure that whatever has been covered in the past, you are clear on, right? But nevertheless, if you're interested, it's here for 2 of the batches in the past. SAP new materials, so these are the PDFs we talked about specifically for NetWeaver 7.31. These are the PDFs. Similarly, I don't have it on the desktop right now. You also have got HANA 100 and HANA 200, which you're going to see on your DVD, right? So this is the SAP training material. So if you open up, one of these, right, it's right. So it's the TADM material, right, and that's what we're going to use to go through some of the concepts, right. So just wanted to quickly. Right, and the way we go through it, we focus primarily on the key diagrams and the salient points around it, right? So we're not going to go through page by page, right? But we're going to focus on what's the JVM, right? What's the concept of, in Java, write once, run many, right? So this is an example, right, on that slide. Similarly, presentation layer, the data layer, the application layer, right? The concepts of servlets and JSP and enterprise Java beans, right? How are multiple SAP AS application server Java instances coexist, what central services, things of that nature are going to be looked at, right? So from a material standpoint, you're not going to find an issue. I apologize. It looks like I killed my sharing frame. So that's back up again. All right. So that's the material. Similarly, there are exercises, right? These are some of the exercises, which we cover in the class. For each day, so they are set up very well. So if I just bring up, I don't know, day 4 exercise, right? So this day 4 exercise is an exercise on transporting a security role, right? So you will see how to do it, the screenshots around it, with highlighted areas of what needs to be clicked, what needs to be entered, right? So obviously, you can just do the exercise. If you have difficulty, you can follow the instructions, which is screen by screen, screenshot by screenshot, right? Enough textual, contextual information available with it, right? And they are lengthy, right? Because our focus is that you learn. So this one, in this case, is 17-page long exercise, right? So very good material, which has been created to really make sure that you learn the topics. And also there's homework, right? Every day, this is just an example. Every day you go back, you're going to get homework, right? Something which you're going to focus on, right? So this is homework, which was given to, which batch is this? Batch 46 on day 5, right? They had to go in and review a CIL.ppt document. This is client instance landscape PowerPoint document. They had to go and read specific units in the TADM 12_2 PDF file, which was covered in the class. They had to do a specific exercise. They had to review recordings of the BW session, right? So BW we don't teach in the class anymore, but we have provided recordings of the previous batches when we used to teach so that people can benefit from it. And custom installation guide, this was right before when we do the installation. What all do they need to read prior to it? What we covered in the class, and some of those notes were shared. Some key transactions were covered. We asked them to go back and revise those, right? So it's almost run like a school, right? Because that's where the learning comes from. Okay, so that's, essentially talking through what's in the DVD. Also, also going back, I think two more things which I wanted to share with the team. Are the following. Let me get the sharing screen. Is we teach everything on the cloud environment. So this is AWS Cloud. So this is AWS right here. So I'm connected to the cloud through a browser session. And I think I told you briefly that all students get their own systems, right? So these are the 4 students who are currently doing the SAP installation. So they have their own system available to them, which Raj has provided them, and they're going through the installation, right, today as we speak. We have got HANA systems available, right, which we can stop, right, relatively quickly. This is a portal for Amazon Web Services. These are the systems, instructor systems on which you're going to be learning. They have been stopped right now. They'll be brought up, when we are going to a formal session 1 of the class. Relatively simple to bring up, shut down these systems, right? Bringing up any of the systems, so if I wanted to bring up this system, right, is a simple exercise of selecting it, action, right, and instant state, I can start it. I can stop it, reboot it, terminate it, right? So all through the cloud portal for Amazon Web Services. So, and I just wanted to introduce this to you because you will be learning everything on cutting edge technology, right? HANA running on the cloud. It can't get any better than that, right? So that's the benefit. And not just the instructor doing it, even the students doing it, right? These 4 students who have their turn today are going through the process right now. They're doing their own installations. In addition, we briefly talked about certification. That you guys would be participating in the certification. For certification, also, what we do very elegantly is we use QuizStar, which is a let me show it to you more effectively, which is an online way for us to deliver mock exercises to you. So we create our quizzes. So this is an example of a quiz which we use with batch 46. So what I can do is you can view, right? So we've got questions, multiple choice, which people have to answer, right? Or they could be true and false, right? So they need to go through this quiz online, and we grade it for them. These are previously asked certification questions, and they are delivered online so that you can go through a mock exam, right, effectively. So this is an example of that. Not only that, once you take the exam, we can have all the reports available to us. So if I go back and I look for the same batch 46, the report of what the class did, and this is the class I was not happy with, right? Because if you look at the score range of the different people which attended, significant number of people scored below 40%, right? And only one person scored in 70 to 79%, right? This guy. And I can then also look at, down below here, different students, right? What did they score? Right? What was their respective score, right? So I'm able to see that as well, right? So this guy, or this lady scored 56, right? I can also look at what did they do in a specific question as well. These are the question, multiple choice, true and false. So a lot of detail is available to us to see from class to class how people do, the results of the students, right, which we just looked at, is available to us. So it's you know, we've spent a lot of time to make sure that, you know, we can give you the right education, give you the right exercises, give you the right homework, give you the right tests so that you are able to achieve your goals. Okay, with that, Raj, if you can share your screen back again, and then I should be able to go through the rest of the presentation. Okay. So Raj, this is actually yours, the hands-on exercises which you are doing, so you might want to talk about it.
Yes. In fact, like Ajay showed, there are, you know, as we speak, there are 4 students, you know, they have this hands-on exercise. So what they are doing currently, you know, we allocate them their own server. So they start from the scratch. Basically, you know, we like in a real-time scenario, right? So where you will have a server to start with, and they are going to tell you some requirements. You know what, we need this BW system installed with HANA database. It's, you know, obviously as a basis administrator, you need to start somewhere, right? So this is where actually, you know, it's going to give you like a good idea, you know, what we are planning to do. I mean, obviously, you know, this is like runs more than 100 pages at this point. And as you notice, you know, we'll start with the prerequisites, and then, you know, what is it needs to be done for the HANA installation, then the BW, how to do work on the backups, and then some of the patching itself, system copy. Again, see, these are all the things, right? So because we went through multiple batches, we exactly know what the students need for them to learn, as well as to, you know, move up in their career, right? So to find a job, or maybe, you know, somebody just trying to, you know, enhance their basic skills. These are all the very critical areas, right? So I mean, again, you know, this is normally, you know, people get it after working in the, you know, the field like for 2-3 years, right? So this one, you know, we try to condense it, give it, you know, for you to quickly jumpstart your career, right? So this one, if you look at it, you know, what are the things you need to get it installed, you know, what kind of adjustments we have to do. You know, we just have a very detailed. If you know, if they are comfortable, obviously, you know, they can start on their own. Again, you know, it tells you what kind of you know, screens. You know, so get yourself familiarized with the process. You know, overall, you know, when, you know, if you go for interview, you know what you're talking about. Those kind of things. Right? So, for instance, this one, you know, once you connect it, once you install it, making sure you're connecting to the system and verifying it, right? So this is like one part of it, and then, you know, you're starting with the next. Again, you'll have 2-3 days to complete it, so it gives you more confidence on your you know, basic knowledge itself, you know, so you can present yourself much better. So that's what it's all about. This is, again, remember, like as I mentioned, this is just the hands-on we are doing at the end of the batch, right? We normally tend to have this 8 sessions, like 8 weekend days. You know, sometimes we might have to skip, not necessarily skip, but, you know, we will, you know, we cannot do it on certain weekends. Either it's a long weekend or something, but we will have it on the next weekend. But there will be a total of 8 sessions, excluding this one today. Plus, you will have this hands-on. You know, you will be working on your own for, you know, 2-3 days on this, depending on your, you know, capability. Some people, they can just do it within a day if they know what they're doing, they know they are familiar with already the process. But, you know, for others, you know, it could be 2 days, right? So because, you know, they are, you know, some of them may not be even worked on the Linux environment. which could be challenging, right? So especially VA editor, how do you edit? In Windows world, everything is easy. But when you go to the Linux, people who have hands-on on it, so it's a very good, tool for them to use these kind of things, get familiarized, right? And then on top of it, right, this is, like I mentioned, this is just the, at the end of the batch, you will have it. On top of it, you will have the, at the end of the session, right? For instance, the day we talk about that, let's say transports, we will have a, batch, I will have exercise based on transport, so that, you will have this system where you can try the transports on your own, see how it works. Basically it will also have instructions on how to do the transports and things like that. Same thing with the client copy, those kind of things. We'll talk about those. So our goal is, like at the end of the session, you should be familiar with the concepts, not just, understanding, how to, installing it's easy, everything is installed nowadays, it's just easy. But what you are installing, why you are doing this, that is where, you have to differentiate from others, right? So understanding, what is that SCS means, ASCS means, right? So ASCS and then primary application server, what does that mean? Why do you choose this number versus, different numbers? Understanding the concept so you don't, run into this. Plus, obviously you should be able to do it, from the technical point itself. So, like I mentioned before, the training would be on a Linux server, which is a Red Hat Linux. We'll have the HANA database. In fact, right now, sorry, I have a lot of systems added here, but for instance, we will, I add the servers, right? For instance, this is one of the HANA database currently. We are using it for our system. This one is a training system. We have temporarily assigned it. As you notice it, it's telling you how much memory it has, and then basically, we have this BH2 server. I have it installed here, so where basically, it's logging into this server. With the 00 right now, right? So, but I'm trying to log into this client. So, basically you log into this client 001, right? So basically what we did is, I logged into this server, NetWeaver 7.4, and running the HANA as a database. Obviously you can see, if you go to this transaction, they call it as a transaction code. We will talk about those. So this is, what it says is, right? So it's using HANA database as our database, and then it's going to tell you what kind of version we have installed and everything, right? So it has this 1.0, and they call it as a 97. That's they call the revision 97. We're using it. So how much memory? Again, this one corresponds to the this again to the memory and things like that, right? So we will talk about all those, during the session, how this interacts with the SAP to the database and those kind of things. Again, I'm going to talk about the SLT as well during our session a little bit, and also like Ajay showed you, right? So the Amazon, they call it as AWS. We'll talk about that a little bit. Again, we may not be able to work hands-on, but you will know at least, to understand what is it Amazon is all about, right? So, and these servers, this server is available again, you will have this kind of servers, right? So where you can log in. And you want to do some exercise on a week, when you have some time, this server will be available, anytime for you in the next, during the 8 weeks, and plus additional time, and then you will have this installation server. We'll also work on BW Java. That's a separate technology. Those who are familiar with SAP, they call it as a stack. One is the ABAP. ABAP is what we saw here, right? So this is ABAP stack. If you see like this screen, this ABAP stack, Whereas if it's on HTML based, like portal or something, that would be a Java stack. We'll talk about that also during our sessions. Like I mentioned, right? So we have this material based on SAP's material, like they showed you, TADM, each one, those materials obviously, right? So we talked about this materials, right? So yeah. So this is like, this itself, if you go to SAP, it's normally they take about 10 days to do it, 10 days to do this. This is again like a 3 days, 5 days, right? This is like a 28 days of training, if you go to this, and that costs a lot of money and your time. Obviously, you cannot even afford, right? Spend 28 days in training, go to that place, because, effectively you should be earning during those days. So what we do is, obviously we have to condense it. We have to, get it in 8 days, right? So understand, get the critical concepts and then make you prepare for it, get the critical things you need to understand. That's what, effectively we do it on a daily basis, right? So we just focus on the critical areas, for you to understand, all this. But eventually this materials is with you. This will be helpful when you are planning to take an exam. So, you have to read through, not just, again, training is giving you jump start, plus you have to do on your part as well. You have to read, spend some time, when you get some time in the evenings or, weekends, you spend a couple of hours a day, while you are doing this training, right, next 8 weeks. So you, read through it, what we, talked about that day specifically. I will tell you what kind of topics you need to, topics you have to specifically in this document, right? For instance, we talk about transport. I would say, go to TADM 12.1, chapter, unit 5 and 6. So that if you focus on that, it would be easy, for you to understand, because this is what Raj talked about this day. And you will have, understand what he talked, also, plus additional things, Then you can come back to me next session and ask, hey, I don't understand this. How does it, what does it do? Those kind of things, we can always, catch up on those things. So you have the servers available 24/7 for you to try. If you have any doubts, always you can reach out to us. And again, this is not just US timing. Again, this students, they obviously, they attend from all over the world. Some people are from India, Middle East, and then I've seen people from, US, obviously, so we have this servers 24/7. And if there is any issues connecting, so we, myself, Ajay, we are from, you work in the US time, plus, we have some Srikanth or Amol, they are working, and we have other support people working in India, so they can, answer your questions, or if there are any issues connecting, we can help you quickly, right? So Ajay pretty much talked about this, right? So session recordings, right, as you see, right? So this is, we are recording this. Right now we are into like 1 hour and 23 seconds into this. What we do is at the end of session, we save this recording, whatever we talked, with the screens, voice, everything is recorded. You can review it. A lot of people, they listen to it, even though they attend the training, they just go through it once again, right? So they understand, a few things, catch up, if they didn't understand clearly, they go through it. It's really helpful. Other thing is the placement offering. That is, Ajay mentioned, right? So they have this, you can reach out to Amol or Ajay if you need more information on this. Eventually this one would be, helpful, after you finish this training, plus, do a certification. It's really, helpful for you to find quickly a job and, get settled in. So this is the schooling approach, what Ajay mentioned, right? So we have this weekly homework, obviously, a lot of things have changed, right? With this training, we enhanced it, we put a lot of effort, like as I mentioned, right? So you can see, I've been working on this. So I have this training, like operation modes, for instance. In fact, I created this one, because a lot of things have changed with these newer releases. One of the challenges as a basis admin, you will face, going forward is keeping up with the technology, right? The SAP, obviously, when we started, it's all different, but some other things are, again, like the RZ4, right? RZ04, it's still the same, but the NetWeaver itself has changed, how it changed. That's what something, you have to understand what's getting changed, keep, up to date with what's getting changed, the newer releases, what they're releasing. Like HANA itself, this is, nowhere there. Like if you talked about somebody to HANA in 5 years ago, nobody would even know about it. But, today all of a sudden, HANA is a big thing right now, right? So without that, everybody's, you have to catch up, you have to catch up with this, right? So understand what is HANA, what can you do, how it can help, you have to understand. Maybe, sometimes certifications is also very helpful. So this is, again, I wanted to show you. Like this, right? So this is what I told, right? So again, this is similar to what I just showed you, specifically on the day 3 of last batch, we talked about this unit, and then, I'm going to tell them what needs to be done at eye level. They can try it on their own, try to create a role, logging into this client. If they are not sure how to do it, obviously, we provide them with this.
Has left the conference.
Role creation, right? So they can follow this note to understand, what needs to be done, and all those can be done. All right, let's moving on. So we talked about the exam. Again, one of the things, you should be focusing as you are attending. Obviously, there is interest, right? So you are attending this because either you are already, working on the SAP, but you want to enhance your skills, or that could be, you are trying to get into this SAP. Obviously, this could be one of the reasons. We've seen both of it. It's actually, we position this training so that it's helps both, right? So making sure, obviously some of the even basics guys, they attend. The reason is to understand the skills. It's not like a basic we are teaching. We are going from basic to advanced level. So other thing is the training, the exam itself. There are multiple exams we talked about. One is the basis technology. That's what we talked about, and then we also prepare you for now the recent change is the HANA certification. HANA certification, especially becomes very critical for HANA certification. The reason is if you want to find a job as a HANA administrator, so SAP mandates to you to have a HANA certification. So now it's like a mandate, right? If you want to be, they call it as a certified consultant, HANA certified consultant. So it's a critical. Before it was optional, but now it's getting more and more mandated. And also it's easy for you to present yourself, right? When you attend the interview, when you say certified. So we do a lot of interview, myself or Ajay, right? So we know that when we read through the resume, first thing we see is like, okay, we give preference to who did certification. The reason is, obviously, this guy knows something, he did the certification, he will know what he's talking about. Then we'll start the screening process, you do the interview and things like that. So, again, this is, normally they do is multiple choice questions, like any other, if you did other exams, in the online, you have to go through person view or this kind of certified testing centers. Course, in fact, itself, they do have testing center. If you are in New Jersey area, you can obviously reach out to Neeta or Ajay. We can help you with setting up a testing. This is the Ajay, what Ajay showed, right? So we'll talk about this. We talked about already about this. This is what Ajay showed you, all those things. So Ajay, you want to talk about this a little bit on the basis? So I can talk about there now.
Yes, Raj, thank you. I will take it for slide number 27. I will pass it on to you for slide 28 for the SAP GUI connectivity to BH2. I'm not set up to connect myself, right? So I'll give it to you for slide 28 onwards. But let me walk the team through the NetWeaver Foundation, and also this would be a good indication as to how the material is going to be taught to you, right? So let me start my sharing frame. All right. So as I've mentioned to you, NetWeaver is the chassis. It's the foundation on which, let me increase the size of this a little bit so that it is visible. Visible to the team more effectively. Okay. So SAP NetWeaver is the foundation on which all of SAP products have been built, other than the ones which they have acquired by buying a company. And it's typically referred to as a refrigerator diagram. It looks like a refrigerator with various shelves and doors open. At the bottom of the refrigerator is what's called the application platform. The beauty of SAP is that it has a layer of DB and OS abstraction. What that means is, since it's a layer of abstraction, means that it is transparent to what database and what operating system you run on, as long as SAP supports that database and operating system. SAP supports multiple operating systems, and it supports multiple databases. So that means if you have a corporate standard, you can still abide by the corporate standard and still use SAP. Doesn't mean that all databases and all operating systems are supported, but all the mainstream databases and the mainstream operating systems are supported. So if you look at operating systems, Windows is supported, Windows Server is supported, Linux is supported, different flavors of Linux, like in RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and SUSE Linux are supported. Unix is supported, and different flavors of Unix, right? Whether it is HPUX, whether it is Sun OS, whether it is AIX, are supported. Some not prevalent operating systems, like AS400 and ZOS mainframe, are also supported. However, your chances of finding a client which is using those is very minimal, right? Bulk of what you're going to find is Windows, Linux, and Unix, right? Different flavors of Linux, different flavors of Unix. And on top of those operating systems, various databases, right? SAP runs on SQL Server, it runs on Oracle, and it runs on HANA, right? Which is SAP's own database. And prior to HANA being prevalent, SAP DB was SAP's own database and still is, right? So it runs on SAP DB as well. Obviously now if you want to run it on an SAP database, HANA is the predominant choice. So that's the DB and the OS abstraction, right? So as you know, as I just told you, is that we are going to focus on a diagram and then we're going to talk around the diagram. Why that is? Because the diagram is going to imprint in your mind so that you will always have the contextual significance, and then what I'm saying is going to be remembered more effectively and can be retained more effectively. The application platform, which runs in SAP, has got a split personality. it has got two flavors. It has got the Java flavor, J2EE, which is called the Java stack, which is relatively new. That means it came to prominence in 2000 to 2005 era, right? Is when Java came to prominence in the SAP space. ABAP has been there for the longest time from the genesis of SAP, and that still continues to be the stronger of the two stacks, right? But again, it's not as open as Java is. So you got split personality. That means you can run both flavors. That means it's almost like saying that I've got a chassis and it can run both a petrol engine or a gas engine and a diesel engine, right? So if you have that capability, you know that you can create both cars, both kinds of cars, right? It's like you are the VW of the world, right? You can create on the same chassis a diesel engine and a gasoline engine. So that application platform is there, right? So right, the bottom shelf of the refrigerator itself is setting the foundation. Multiple databases, multiple operating systems, multiple stacks, right? Very, very strong foundation. And then the layer above, process integration, meaning that now if I need to talk to multiple applications, I need to have an integrated process. The whole concept of exchanging messages, of enterprise application integration is inherent in the NetWeaver stack. I can have an ECC system talk to a PLM system, talk to a CRM system, talk to an SRM system relatively easily out of the box using PI. So PI is a very, very strong foundation to have. Master data management. This is one of the biggest problems in enterprises today, is how to manage their master data. Even in a small organization like ours, right, there are so many Excel spreadsheets, so many Access database, so many accounting systems, that means it's very easy that ATT becomes AT&T, becomes American Telegram, and Telegraph becomes ATT Wireless, right? It's basically the same company, but you have given them different names, right? Had you consolidated, cleansed, and maintained a single set of master data, you won't have those challenges, right? So master data management is SAP's way of saying that a single source of truth for master data, so that all of your 5 business suite applications have the same master data sourced from the same location. That location happens to be master data management, MDM. Used to be a separate product, now has become part of ECC as a module called Master Data Governance, MDG. Business intelligence, which is sitting right on top, is BW. So BW is a very powerful data analytics engine for data warehousing purposes. Obviously, can be built standalone, can be built as a data mart, as an enterprise data warehouse. What SAP has done is gone a step ahead and said that all of our products are going to have business intelligence built into them, right? Why? Because I just want to make sure that when you have a toolbox, in that toolbox, I am always going to give you a measuring tape, right? Irrespective of whether you need to measure something or not, you're always going to have it, right? This way, if you do intend to measure your performance, do a KPI, do some analytics, you always have it, right? So SAP is making their toolbox stronger and stronger, right? And you know, if you do some work around the house, if you have a toolbox which has got some of your commonly used products in it, you know that invariably any project you take in and around the house, you'll be able to do it, because you know that you have the screwdriver, you have the hammer, you have the nails, you have the measuring tape, you have a spirit level, right? You have the common building blocks of successfully solving an issue, a problem, or a project at home. Just take that analogy and magnify it 1,000 times, NetWeaver is that toolbox, and then you have got business problems, right, out there in your enterprise which you need to solve. And the toolbox is so powerful that invariably you will be able to solve it in a 3 to 6 month project, right? And that's what people are after, right? That's what companies are after, is that, what does that toolbox look like, right? Which can help you find solutions to complex business problems. That's even the tagline for Coach, right? In addition, we've got knowledge management, right? Invariably, you will have a need to have a portal, a web presence, some kind of collaboration, some kind of knowledge management. So in that toolbox, you have got enterprise portal as well. That means you have a true web server with portal capabilities, with portal-related security capabilities, with collaboration engine, with knowledge management engine built in. And on top of all of this, you've got multi-channel access. That means you can access it through web, through SAP GUI, through an iPad, through a mobile device. Now added to the mix is Fiore, which is HTML5, SAP UI5, truly platform independent, looks and behaves the same way whether you're working in a browser on a desktop, you're working on a browser in a tablet, or you're working on a browser in a mobile device, right? You're going to have the same look and feel, same experience. So that is SAP NetWeaver, and also this gives you a sense of how we are going to go and attack the material. Very similar to this. Also, from an architecture standpoint, right, when we talk about certain things, right, how is SAP architected? Again, we're going to start with some kind of a diagram, and we're going to build around it, right? So a little while ago, we talked about the ABAP stack and the Java stack, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to build on it, and we're going to say, what is the ABAP stack, AS, Application Server ABAP stack, have in terms of processes, and what do those processes do, right? So obviously, SAP has the concept where you can run multiple application servers. Each application server has a dispatcher, right? And it's shown here as a dispatcher. And all the dispatchers, since they're different application servers of the same SAP system, talk to each other through a process called a message server. So message server is a key process, and it's also a single point of failure in an SAP system. It's like the heart of the SAP system. If it's down, SAP is down. So that's a process, right? So you learn two processes here, the dispatcher, the message server. Similarly, you've got the gateway process. If the SAP system wants to talk to the world outside, or the world outside wants to talk to the SAP system, it happens through the gateway process, right? For both incoming and outgoing traffic. ICM, Internet Communication Manager. When we connect to an SAP system through a browser, it happens through the ICM process, irrespective of whether that browser traffic is destined towards an ABAP dispatcher, ADIS, or a Java dispatcher, JDIS, right? Does not matter. And ICM is smart enough to manage, based upon the port number inherent in the URL string, it will forward it either to the ABAP side of the world or to the Java side of the world. So that, both the stacks in the split personality are able to handle the kind of traffic coming in. The dispatcher itself is almost like a taxi cab dispatcher, right? The goal is that based upon the incoming request and what that request really is about, that it tries to forward it to the right queue. If it's a simple dialogue request for a SAP GUI screen, then it will pass it to the dialogue work process. If it's a request to execute something in the background overnight without an end user interaction, it will pass it to the background or the batch work process. If it is a request to obtain a lock on a specific record, it will pass it to the NQ work process. If it's a request to update a record in a table, it will pass it to the update work process. If it's a request to print something, it will pass it to the spool work process. Right? So the way people remember these processes in the ABAP stack is through an acronym called DWebMegs. DWeb, V-E-B, Megs, M-G-S. So D for dialogue, V for update, E for NQ, B for background, M for message server, G for gateway, S for spool. So in that acronym, two processes are not covered. Dispatcher is not covered because the D in DWebMegs is D for dialogue, not D for dispatcher, and ICM is not covered. So just be aware of it, right, in that acronym. Similar to this, one would ask, how does the Java stack look like? This is how the Java stack looks like. It also has a Java message service. It also has the Java dispatcher. You can run multiple of those Java dispatchers, as in multiple Java application servers. It has a NQ service. And then there are certain differences. It has an SDM, Software Deployment Manager. It's a process which lets you deploy to the Java stack. And then instead of having a dialogue work process and an update work process, since Java is a threaded architecture, it only has got one work process, which in it or internal to it has got other threads. And that work process is called the server process. And you can run multiple server processes to meet the requirements of your memory consumption and CPU consumptions and to minimize any of the bottlenecks. So the reason we covered this was to just kind of get your appetite going, right? Again, all of this is going to be covered again. Raj is going to go through it as we start with day one. But today, there's a lot of people say, okay, they want to get a sense of, how are you going to teach? What are you going to teach? Am I going to be able to understand the area, right? So this is to kind of give you a sense of it. And hence we went through two topics, right? The first topic being the NetWeaver stack. The second topic being the architecture of the work processes within an ABAP stack, within a Java stack. Again, if you feel overwhelmed, that's okay, right? We have been able to teach people who were doing non-IT work, right? The good thing and the beauty about IT is that it is very absorbing, very accommodating, very adaptive, right? It is not like being a medical professional, right? Where only if you have been and grown up through the ranks can you be one. It's not the same as being a CPA, not the same as being a lawyer, right? IT is much more open and accommodating to people from different backgrounds. All right? So Raj, with that, it's back to you.
All right, thanks, Ajay. So Ajay just mentioned all the about the services, right? So this is how we do. Obviously, we talked about different kinds of dialogue server. We don't stop it there, right? So obviously, from the perspective of theoretical, right? So concepts, this is how it works, this process. On top of it, after that, right away, wherever possible, what I do is, we go to the system, hands-on. So how do you relate it, right, in the system itself? For instance, here, right, so we talked about the different kinds of process right now, just as I mentioned. We talked about dialog servers, how do you check it, how it's being used. As you can see right now, I have around 10 dialog servers, and then, 8 of them are free. And I have one update server, one background process, three background processes. None of them is used at this point. The spool, they call it for printing. So that's, at least it's one. And then we call it the V2, right? So this is the V2. So right now, this is the process, right? So again, we talked about few other things, right? Like a gateway itself, right? So this is the gateway process of it's used. You can see it. It's the ICM monitor. There you can monitor what traffic comes in, goes out. It gives you a good idea on that one. Plus, we talked about some of the gateway. So we will talk about that also. As you can see, this is the transaction I'm opening. Obviously, for every SAP, each thing, whatever you are trying to do, they have this, they call it as a transaction code, right? As a basis administrator, you will have to remember this. So far we use, multiple transactions code. I just used DB02, SM50, SMICM. Now I just used SM59. So this one, you will have to obviously, you'll have to remember it, when to use which one, right? So obviously this is, you cannot refer to a manual for each time, but again, you cannot remember every single one of it that too, because there are, basically there are hundreds, even probably thousands, and each one is has its own, usage. So for you, there are a handful of things you will have to know. So that one, eventually we'll talk about this. For instance, right, so obviously you can see the gateway, right? So you can see the gateway is here, it's mentioned. So this is, a lot of things, what I noticed from, working, I've seen a lot of business administrators, they don't know the concept, they don't know how to install and all, which is easier. But when do you use this, right? The gateway, how do you use it? Or, when you connect, what is the purpose of this instance number? Why do you give this number, right? For instance, even that. You come here, you notice it, you give this number 3. Why we did not give number 1, right? Number 3, this kind of things, right? So they know, they just basically blank, they work on it. But this is where you should focus on, understanding the concepts. What is the significance, right? So when you're trying to dispatcher with this message server, what's the difference? Those kind of things we'll focus on when we connect, those kind of concepts. So if you want to, actually, what normally we do is, if you have SAP GUI installed, you can connect to this server, the one I'm right now connecting. If you already have it, all you have to do is, you just give this IP address, 54.227.245.127, and then the instance number, and then this set as the BH2, as in BW on HANA. You can connect yourself and use this client, that's the 001. Use user ID badge 49, and then the password one, capital P. It's case sensitive, obviously. So use this to connect it, and then you can even run some of the transaction on your own, right? So this is something you can do it. So meanwhile, you can get connect to it. While you are doing it, I will just show some of the things on the row store and the column store, right? We just talked about it. So let's go back to this material. There it is. So we talked about this row store, column store, right? This is one of the foundations of HANA itself. This is where they built it, right? So this is their main technology where it differentiates from the other database technologies like Oracle or any other things, right? So obviously you can see this is a table, right? So we have this table like this. These are rows and then the columns. So basically, if you're arranging it by row, you'll go by this row, A10, then the euro symbol, then B35, just sequentially. Whereas if I'm doing the column, basically I take this whole column 1, A, B, C, D, E, and then 10, 35 to right. So this and all it's managed. So that's why normally they represent with this symbol with a column store. Row, this is very typical in any database. If you take Oracle or something, this is how it is managed, but this is a different one. Again, if you are talking about that, obviously I have to we have to show it in the system itself, right? So you go into the system, again, this is one of the, I believe somebody asked a question as well, right? I just looked into it. So Baboon asked, right? So MCOD or MDC, right? So this is, they call it as the MDC, they call it as multiple data containers. This is the newer concept in HANA that came in version 9 onwards, which we have. As you see, right, so this one, it's a m_database. I ran a query on this system. So I have the system DB, plus I have another database called BH1, and then another one called BH2, which we are currently using. Right now, other one I shut it down because we are not using it. But this one is active, which means it's actually open. The database is open, as I see, you can connect it. So this kind of thing, right, where you have multiple databases, they call it as a tenant database. So you have one system database and then multiple user database. This is the multiple database container. So for this question, right, yes, we use MDC. So we use it, and then that's the concept we'll be focused on. So we'll talk about that. What is the difference between MDC and other types of installation. There are multiple types you can do it, but this we are using the MDC. And SAP recommends to do this. That's why we chose it, because going forward, all the SAP is pushing for this kind of methodology. Because it gives us flexibility if the company wants to install multiple database using one single HANA instance. So that's why they are pushing for it. This is, those who are familiar with SQL Server, this is the same concept. If you notice it, you will have a system database, and then they will have temp database and other things, but here they don't have temp database plus user database. That's all it is, right? So if you look at this, so they have this concept called schema, where you will have multiple schemas here. For instance, in this, I have this above one. This is the schema which stores all the data relevant for the SAP BW database. For running this SAP system, whatever I store, everything goes into this particular schema, right? So this one, right? And if we go to these tables, SAP is, very famous for this, right? They have these thousands and thousands of tables. If you notice it, there are lots and lots of tables. So all this table, for instance, let's take one of the tables, right? I can say open definition. So this is a table, right? I have this, and if you go to the runtime information, I don't have any entries, but obviously, this one says it's a column store. It's a column store. Basically, you can see that it's using the column store. And SAP gives the capability, right? You can load it into the memory. Right now, it's in the memory. That's how you can see it. I can say it, unload it, just don't run it, because, it can be like a 1 terabyte of big table, which I don't actually use it. I don't have to use the memory, for that if I'm not using it effectively. So you can unload it. So it will be in the disk. It can be loaded when you need it. Again, we don't have to control it. SAP does a good job. Which table needs to be on a row store, which table needs to be on a column store. SAP will be able to help us. If you look at this, you can find some other table which can be a column, a row store as well, right? So these are the, for instance, let's try this big. Okay, this is also a column store table, right? So you have this, and this table is also empty right now. Let's look at this table. I know this one should have some data. So column store, it has the, it should have some values. So it has this, right? It's occupying around 441 MB, right? So this is like a KB, so it's MB. Again, they have this concept called the delta merge. This is a very different technology than, again, this is where SAP HANA stands out from the other technology. They call it the delta merge, where, you have this, whenever you make changes to the database table itself, for instance, let's say, you insert another 100,000 rows into this specific table. It's not going to directly go and, change it. They create as a delta storage. They allocate it, they call it as a delta storage. So where they get all this data and, it's unsorted. The difference between is most likely, when you insert something into this, your data will be much higher, size would be much higher than your main storage, because right now this one is sorted as well as it's compressed. That's why, you see it very less. But, if you insert something, it's going to be much higher. At some point, what they do is they call it a merge doc, right? That's a process, it runs in the background, and it's going to merge that data from the delta storage into the main storage. And then once it goes to the main storage, it's going to sort all the data and it's going to compress it. That's how, that's, again, between, before it gets combined, so there are two instances, right? So you'll have two places you have to refer it. They call it as a MVCC, multiple version control concept. So because, you have to get the right data, right? So when somebody is querying for some data or changing it, they should have, you should refer to both the places. Again, SAP manages it very well. Obviously, they are very good in this, right? So that's how, obviously this product is much more selling point for them, right? And they call it as asset. Asset is the, any database needs to be done. It has to be atomic, consistent, and, there are a few other things. We'll talk about those. I don't want to take up much of today's time. We just talked about it. So if you have, like I said, if you are installed, if you already have a SAP GUI installed, you can, welcome to connect to it. So this is our connection information. So 54, 27. I will put it on the Q&A board so that everybody will know it. /03/BH. So you can connect to it. I will just do a reply. So you should be able to see it now. All right. So we, again, Baboon, I believe you might have worked in the HANA space. So obviously it's asking whether we can migrate it from the single tenant to multi-tenant, right? So we are installing with the multi-tenant. Obviously we don't have lower releases. We want, train with the new releases, right? So again, there are multiple variations, right? I mean, we cannot cover every single one of it because, like I said, this is like 28 days of course. We are combining into, condensing into 8. Cannot, but we can give you directions, specific, what needs to be done. We can talk about it. I can provide you some information if you want. But we don't have it right away. We don't do the single tenant because it's a lower versions. It's not going to help us because any company who are going to install it, or most likely when you go and work on a system, it's going to be multi-tenant, from 6 months to 1 year, right? So by the time, most of the companies would have already migrated from single tenant to multi-tenant. So what we can do is we can look into some of the transaction codes. If you had a chance to connect to it, you can connect it. So like this, right? If you want to know who are all the users logged on to the system. So right now, as you can see, somebody else is trying to connect. You can see, obviously they're trying to connect, right? So they're trying to log in. You will see who are all the connected. What is that they're doing. You will have a better idea, right? Which user ID, from which host they're connecting. What is that they're trying to do? Plus, how are they connecting? Sometimes it could be through GUI. There are multiple ways. You can use the GUI itself. This is what we call it as a GUI for Windows, but there is a GUI for HTML, and there is a web-based. And there is another transaction called AL08. The difference between these two is, again, this is, they call it as additional application servers. So you will know from all the systems, right? So it's not like just this particular T01, but assume, I have this T02, another server. I can know without even logging in, I will be able to tell set of users who are currently active in the systems. We can find those out. So a few other transactions, right? So I just told you about this app server. So right now, as you can see, this is my primary, they call it as a primary application server. I logged into the primary application server. I do have a dialog server installed. This is running on instance 05, but I'm running on the same server as this one, right? So I'm having this. That's why, if you can even log into that box. This is like, as you can see, I logged on to right now to the DH2_05. That's my dialog server. They call it as additional app server, AAS, and then the PAS, primary application server. Primary application server is, in this case, this is my primary application server, and this is my additional application server. I just showed you the SM50. It's telling you what are all the process, right? We talked about the DVEMBGS, right? So these are all the process, how actively it's using. You will know if there are performance issue. Obviously, these are all some of the places you might be checking. So this transaction code is similar to this. It says all the work process. What are all it's actually used. You'd use it in different places for different reasons. SM12. Again, this. SAP has this own log concept. That's why they call it the NQ server. They have this. They place the logs on the tables, and when you make it, you will see it, right? So those things you can see right now. If I take it out, right now there are no logs because it's nothing being used. But eventually, once they start using it, you might see it. You can see it's already placed a log, right? Because I'm trying to make a modification in this for this user. It's already right? I'm going to make this change to this particular user. Let's say, I need to adjust my first name, student or something. While making the change, you don't somebody else to be making this change. It's just a very good example, right? So. Again, think about this. This could not be much, but if you are in an invoice or something where you are trying to update it while the other user is, another functional user, end user may be using it. So you don't want somebody making change the same invoice at the same time. So SAP behind the scenes, it does locking mechanism. That's why they call it the NQ. So and they basically track it and they release it as soon as I'm done with this change. I'm done with this. So you can see it's already released. It releases it. So that's the locking mechanism, and we have this PFCG, which is the other one. If you are a security administrator, again, security itself, they call it as SAP Security Administrator. The reason they have it separate, because it does a lot of things. But as a basis administrator, at the minimal, you should know, how to create a user, what is roles, what is the profile means. That's we are going to talk about it during our sessions, obviously, right? So this is, you notice it. So obviously, right now you can see my profile, right? I have assigned the SAP R profile, so which means it's a system administrator profile. As an administrator, you will need to have a SAP R, or maybe some companies they restrict certain access because of their company restrictions, and they use a thing called firefighter ID, which is only can be used at when you're trying to troubleshoot. So and they do audit, obviously, right? When you use it, I used it on the December 19th at 11 a.m. Auditor will ask, what is the reason why it was enabled? Why did you enable the firefighter? Because obviously you will have some kind of a change ticket or something when you are going on in your company, saying the system was down, so you have to log into the system to fix that particular issue. The table was corrupt, so you have to do something, and basically you track those, and it's being audited. Especially this is true for publicly traded companies, which they do it, right? So they track everything because it's auditable. Private companies, they do a little bit, okay with that, but public traded companies, they are strict about it. And then there's log. Again, any system, right? Not just SAP. If you talk about anything, this is one of the things, Oracle or anything, whatever the system you do, you should know where to look for your logs. This is one of the areas you can check. Again, there are nothing here. System is clean right now at this point, so which is fine. But if there is an issue going on, you will know. Again, this is, you can go back here. I can check it. Yeah, obviously, right? So something, I started it. It's giving you idea of what's going on behind the scenes. If there is issue, you can always go back and troubleshoot. So these are all some of the things, you can try it on your own. If you can, you have access to this box. Once you get it, you can do it. So again, the HANA we talked about, right? So this is the HANA database itself. We talked about some of the row store and the column store. Again, row store, column store, how do you, which table stored as a row store, which stored as a column store, which is, we don't have to worry. Basically, what SAP, when you install SAP server, SAP knows, which table needs to go into this row store. Pretty much all the transactional tables will be a column store, and there are some system level tables that will be stored as a row store. That's SAP will decide on it, but you do have the option to change it back and forth. But normally, it's not advisable, not just here, right? Any SAP things. SAP, if there is a reason why SAP did it, they make this way because there would be a reason. So unless, before you making a change, understand what you are changing and why you need to change it, and sometimes it may be worthwhile to check with the SAP itself. If you're before you're making any default setting changes related to system level. Again, there are some areas where SAP will tell you need to change it because because that's what like a configuration, call it a configuration or customization. You customize based on your need, right, your company's need, which is allowed. But when you're making system level, you have to be careful, and you need to understand why you are making those changes. For instance, like this, right? I don't want to just go and make this change as a column store, which is I would be able to do it, but If you change it, there might be some other issue. Performance might be impacted. Those kind of things. You need to understand this significance of those values, right? I believe that that's like an hands-on. Again, the servers are available. If you want, you can obviously connect to it. We will post this this presentation itself on the Yahoo groups. Ramol will be able to provide you with this slide deck. So it's all already included, the connectivity information. You can connect it when you get a chance. Even after, you can download this GUI and install it and try it. Try to see some of the transactions yourself, see how it works, and get comfortable with it. So Ajay, do you want to finish it up? I think we're done with the technical part. I think we're running out of time as well. So.
Yes, Raj. Let me take on the next part here. And essentially these are the frequently asked questions. How are the opportunities in the SAP field? Obviously, SAP, as a lot of you know, and that's the reason perhaps you're in this class, is the most lucrative and the sought-after field in IT. In addition to that, even within that basis, and that too now with HANA, is the most lucrative of all the different disciplines within SAP. Most of our trainees, as long as they are focused and keen on learning and advancing their skills, are able to find an assignment within a short time, right? It might be 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, but it will happen. But not without hard work, right? Do you provide any certification? Yes, you will get a certificate for the training. All the trainings we offer cover the syllabus required for the SAP certification. Obviously, the certification which has got true value in the marketplace is SAP certification, right? So we highly encourage you and prepare you towards taking that. Do you help with the placements after the course is done? Yes, we do have a specific KPSO program, which stands for Coach Placement Service Offering, where we help with your resume, with your background, preparing for mock interviews and the marketing process and the certification itself, right? Do you provide remote access to the servers? Yes. It's 7/24 from anywhere on the globe. Can we attend the SAP classes remotely? You're doing it today. You can attend it remotely using live meeting. Not only can you attend it remotely, you can interact with the instructor bi-directional on audio. If you join to the bridge, or if you're just listening on live meeting, then we have a Q&A forum. Last but not the least, everything is recorded as well so that you can come back and revisit those. Raj, you can move to the next slide. Okay. How long after the training do you have access to the servers? It's for 3 months. And then, if you want, you can extend it at a very nominal cost of $100 a month so that you benefit from it. And again, we are not very anal about just taking the access away after 3 months, right? Our goal is shared with your goal is that you are successful at the end of the day. If that doesn't happen, it's all meaningless, right? Moving on, what we are going to focus now on is kind of give you a little case study of an individual who went through this process, and primarily from a standpoint of making it, anecdotal, and, you can kind of relate, right? So this is of a student who attended our 29th batch from April to June 2010, right? We just picked up a student. You know, we can pick up a lot of different examples. After the batch finished, she ended the KPSO program from October to Jan 2011. She got certified after her training and during the KPSO program in December 2010. And then she went through the marketing process in Feb to March 2011, and she joined Accenture on April 18, 2011. And, you know, she's been there. I think she recently changed jobs and recently, you know, visited us again to learn the HANA piece as well, which she had not learned back then. What did she do, right? She attended all sessions remotely because the course even back then was all virtual. And it had an in-class piece as well, but she was in Canada, so she just attended everything remotely. Very focused, asked questions in each of the class before the class started based upon the homework. Very active in the class, completed all homework on time, including the installation exercise, which is probably the most comprehensive exercise. And when she did get certified, she got certified with 90% grade. And the next page, if you move to, is her actual certification. And as you see here, you know, it's December 2010, and you know she has got 90% grade in each of the different areas. You can see how well she scored. And barring two areas, right, which is number 16, SAP Internet Technology, and number 18, which I was very mad with her for, which is SAP Systems Starting and Stopping, using SAP MMC, which is Management Console, and Systems Configuration, which is number 20. She did fairly well in all other areas, right? Her score would have been much better had she not done bad in those specific three areas. But nevertheless, she did relatively good, so this is her result from the certification exam, right? We can move on, Raj. This sets the stage up. You know, we said that we'll have close to 20 odd minutes. We've got 23 minutes, you know, to look at your any Q&A, you know, any questions you have. Either Raj or I will try and answer those. You can ask them on the Q&A forum, or you can ask, you know, over the phone. Okay. Any questions for people who are, I think there are 18 odd people who are on, including myself, Amol, and Raj, so there are really 15 individuals.
Yeah, I got a question. So what would be the class timings going forward?
Yeah, so the class timings are 9:30 to 5:30 on Saturdays.
Okay, and is there any other schedule, I mean, like a daily or every alternate day?
No, there's no other schedule. It's only on Saturdays. There's enough homework given, which will require at least 20 hours of your time to catch up on things during the week, right? So you will have to kind of budget for spending that kind of time. You know, if the material is new to you and you really want to be diligent, right? Which was in one of the previous slides. But in terms of formal classes, it's only once a week. And there as well, long weekends, any formal long weekends, there's no class.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
So again, just to add to it, it's all Eastern Standard Time, right? What Ajay mentioned, 9:30 to 5:30, that's Eastern Standard Time. Again, there are people attending from different time zones, so you have to know exactly, what time is it, right? So just it's Eastern Standard Time. If you are in New Jersey, New York area, that's your local time.
Okay, and then we have got two questions. Durai Pandey has a question. I have not received the DVD. Can we get it before the first class? Yes. Durai Pandey, if you have registered, the DVD probably already has been mailed out and you will receive it. If you have not registered, then that's a prerequisite for the DVD to be sent out. Irrespective, if you have not received it, we will still provide the material to you electronically for the first class. That shouldn't be an issue. Then we got Vishal. If you can move to that question, Raj. Has he mentioned about the DVD for the material? Do we get the material in any other form? No. DVD is the only form you get it in. Right, so only electronic media. You actually don't want it any other way, right? There's no other way to consume it easily. These are all PDF files. You can put them on your iPad, laptop, right? You can go through it at your own convenience, search through it. It's just a better way to do it.
Hey, Ajay and Raj, this is Hari. I have a couple of questions, actually. The first thing is related to class. So you said the class timings will be 9:30 to 5:30 p.m. EST, right? So do we have a break in between, or?
Yes, we have a lunch break in the middle, which changes somewhat as to when it really starts. It's for 1 hour. The reason it changes somewhat is because we try to find a logical break point, especially if you're in the middle of an exercise known as soft 4. And then there might be other small 5-odd minute breaks, if we feel that the class is losing interest and or we just did a major exercise and, it's a good logical break point. But outside of that, there is no other break.
So the whole course contains like 8 more sessions with approximately like 6 to 7 hours a day, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, so there's just a lot of material. Yeah, correct?
Something, I think the question will be for Raj, I think. Raj, so what exactly you'll be discussing on SLT standpoint? I mean, like, do you discuss on how the SLT need to be installed and maintain those things, or?
Correct. So what we'll talk about is how do you first, what is it you need to get the SLT working, just from the configuration perspective. On top of it, what I will do is I will show you, like using transactions like LTRS or LTRC, how to set up a, like a transfer between a source. We probably will use the same system, but again, it's like whatever you'll do it in real time, right? You'll set up a source and then you pick up a schema in HANA, set up those and try to replicate some tables, right? So how is it working? How do you monitor it? Stop it? Those kind of things.
Right. And as I can see, there is a business object system even and solution manager in the coach landscape. So do we even get access to those systems and get some idea on those systems too, or how does it work?
See, again, right, we just talked about, right, so this is like, 8 days only, and we are talking about large. So, I mean, we can show, how these business objects, but getting hands-on, probably that's doubtful. The reason is because it's under a VPC. What we do here is like a SAP, they call it a public IP, right? So you just connected it. I gave the IP address, you'll be able to connect, but those are all running on VPC, which means, either you have to have access to like a VPN kind of access, setting it over, and, again, it's mainly used for other client activities as well. Coach has its like client-side Campbell, other clients, so we use it. I can show you, what is that business objects, how do you connect it, but we don't go in depth, right? So again, from the perspective of how it's, used, like for reporting purpose, right? So how it's being used, consumed, HANA data, right? So we can talk about those.
And I'll probably want to, Hari, just give me a second. I want to probably add to Raj's response, and then you can, ask a subsequent question. We have another program, and the reason you see a lot of that, when we showed the EC2 control panel is, the reason you see a lot of that systems is we are also putting forward a very comprehensive HANA modeling course, right, which can be taken as an extension of this course after this, wherein the use of SLT to create a native HANA schema in addition to a sidecar and then having BO reports on top of it is shown kind of end to end, right, in terms of how a solution which is, not just BW on HANA, not just S4, but truly HANA sidecar or a native HANA solution or a native data warehousing solution using HANA modeling and BO reports on top looks like, right? And that's the reason a lot of that is there. And if you want in-depth exposure, I would recommend registering, later on for the HANA modeling course.
And Ajay, what about the solution manager? I see that you guys are providing some kind of material in the DVD. So do we get access to solution manager so that we kind of have at least, visibility and a bit hands on the...
Yeah. That's why we provide the recordings of it. We used to have a solution manager course. The demand for that was not that high, and hence we, stopped offering it. But just as a benefit for our students, we still provide recordings, right? If there is a need that you want to connect to a Solman system and work with it, we have got no objection, providing you with that access to, obviously we won't provide basic access, we'll provide limited access so that you can look and view it. If you want a more specific one-on-one on that, we can arrange for that as well. Raj has got a lot of good experience, and I also on Solution Manager, in fact, all aspects of Solution Manager, because as you have seen, that's one of our service offerings.
Great.
Yeah.
And
we just want to, and again, unlike all of other training institutions, right, we are not just saying yes to everything, right? We are saying no to a lot of things because we know that 8 times 7, right, or 8 times 8, what can we truly deliver effectively in 64 hours, and we don't want to dilute that piece, right? We want to make sure that we ace that because we know that that is required, right, and that's what we are trying to sell here.
That's great. You guys are providing at least some material on those areas so that I can spend more time on those areas.
Yes.
And have something.
Yes.
And last question, I think for both guys. So Raj kind of already go through a bit on the transaction codes. I'm wondering, is Raj gonna go in depth like how to really use transaction codes, or it's just?
No. So I'll answer it, and then I'll let Raj fill in the blanks if I've missed certain areas. No, the goal is, as you would have seen, if Raj, if you were to navigate back to that slide where we had the T codes, the title of the slide itself, if I recall, said to get your hands dirty, right? So this is basically just to get your hands dirty, right? We are actually going to take, the full body and throw it in the ditch, right? So it's going to be really dirty, right? So the whole idea is that, we don't want to overwhelm today, yet we don't want to paint a rosy picture that, you can get to a 6-figure salary by just attending a course, right? It never works like that. So we want to make sure that people at least have an appreciation of what is being covered, what it's going to look like, but you'll have a lot of in-depth analysis of specific T codes. Some are easier than others, where you only need to spend 10, 15, 20 minutes. There are others, where you can spend hours together to kind of master, what's in that T code. And then whatever is not covered in the class is in the homework, right, in the PDF files. Remember, each of those 7 PDF files on an average is 300 to 500 pages, right? So even if we go by a lower number of 300, 7 times 300, that's 2,100 pages, right? So there's no way each and every one of those is going to get covered, but you're going to get enough of the detail in specific areas so that you can then read and fill in the blanks and kind of have a better appreciation of, if somebody gives me an oversight of the T code and enough details about it, going through all the menus, all the sub-menus, I can then learn on my own, because I can navigate through it, kind of see what it does not do. Obviously, there are certain T codes which are very, very important, right? So the LTRS and all, right? That's a single T code, but a lot of capability in it in the SLT space. Raj, I don't know if you want to add to it.
Yeah, so just to add to it is obviously, we will talk about, as a basis administrator, right? So obviously this is why you are here in first place. You want to be basis administrator. So we'll definitely talk about and, in depth all the T codes, right? For instance, like we just talked about SM59. So, you should know as a basis administrator when to use it, so those kind of critical transactions, definitely we'll go through it. And rest of it, obviously some of them might be, you'll have to pick up. Obviously, like I said, there are hundreds and hundreds of transaction codes. You cannot remember and you cannot, go through each one of it. So sometimes, you'll have to learn from your experience, right? So when you start a job or something. But for you to get started, to attend an interview or to do a daily, day-to-day things, yes, we will cover it.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
So Sanjeev just mentioned, right? So I download the DVD and then have the exercise and homework, right? Yes. So you will not see it. The reason we didn't do it is because we want to give it after the end of the session. Normally, what I do is after the completion of that day, I will upload the relevant documents into the Yahoo groups where we have folders. I will tell you how to do it. So Amol will give you specific instructions also. For each day, for instance, after this session, for instance, even today, right, we will just upload this document. After the day one, we will just upload our day one exercise as well as homework into this folder. So we just want to cover the topic that day, and then will be uploaded. So Charles has a question, will you be covering system copies of homogeneous as well as heterogeneous, right? So obviously those who are not familiar with this terminology, homogeneous copy is the same system copy. For instance, you are doing from right now we have a Linux SAP BW system. If I'm, ANA system, right? Linux and ANA. If you want to do to another system copy to a Linux and ANA, that's called a homogeneous system copy. Whereas, I don't want this Linux and, I don't like this HANA, for a reason, you are converting it to Oracle database. That's called heterogeneous, converting from either OS or database to a different one. That's heterogeneous. We don't do the heterogeneous, but we do cover the homogeneous system copy, right? So this is what I showed you, right? Here, if you look at this 75, right? So we are and at this point, I had this BH1. I'm installing a system as a BH2. In fact, this is how I built it. In fact, I was making sure this exercise is working. Right, BH2 is built on top of BH1, which I installed it. So you will have even, I will demonstrate it, as well as you will have opportunity to do on your own. Basically what we use, they call it a backup restore method. So we will cover it.
So, Raj, do you cover on traditional databases also or only HANA-DB?
Again, time is the issue, right? We do provide this TADM 51. That's the Oracle's material, right? So that's a very detailed document. Again, we can talk about a little bit, but not in depth, right? Again, there's a lot of information, for you to, for anybody starting now also, right? So for you to prepare, obviously, you need to know something about Oracle because, it's a lot of, the TADM 51, I believe that exam is based on the Oracle database, so you should read a little bit. But we do have some systems, if you want to, log in and work on.
Has left the conference.
And provide you. Process of enrolling students.
Sorry to disturb. So I see that in hands-on, I think you guys are covering the SAP upgrade too, right?
Correct, yes.
So will you be covering the HANA?
Yes.
Sorry, you broke up there. What was the last question? Whether we'll be covering HANA upgrade? Okay, Raj can answer.
Yes, we will cover the HANA upgrade as well. For instance, right now we are running on SP9. We can upgrade it to SP10. In fact, SP11 is out very recently, but SP10 we will do the SP10 upgrade. I will, obviously, will demonstrate it, and we will have an opportunity to work on yourself as well. Certification for this one, Babun, right? So this one you have to register with they have this authorized centers, right? The first Pearson View, that's one of the authorized centers. There may be more. You have to call them and pay the exam fees, and you set up the appointment with them on a specific date and time, and then basically you have to appear there, and then you have to take the exam. So will you cover security and GRC security in the course? See, that's again, like I mentioned, ECC security itself, if you are trying to be a security administrator, that's a different thing. And it's a whole different thing.
Has joined the conference.
Where we will talk about ECC security, yes, we will talk about it to the level, where we can get you understanding the users, what is it, user concepts, roles, profiles, those things. But not the GRC. GRC, itself, it's a separate product. If you notice it, they call it as a governance, risk, and compliance. That's the GRC product. In fact, it used to be a product called Virsa. Virsa is the product used to be. SAP, one of the, this is how they work, right? They acquire the product because, it's good product. So they feel it's a good addition to their suite of products. So I acquired it. Now they integrated into SAP. Again, that's meant more for a security administrator. Again, we don't teach it because, again, there are lots of things we are teaching here, right? So it will be difficult to understand, everything on within the data. We don't cover the GRC, but security basics, yes.
So the way we should look at it is security which a systems administrator needs to know is covered, right? If you want to be a security admin, then perhaps this course is not going to give you enough material to become a full-blown SAP security admin, right? But it might kind of set you to take a subsequent course in SAP security because you would have understood the fundamentals and the basis administration. We used to run a separate security course as well, but we don't do that anymore. Same as we stopped the Solman as well because the demand for those more specialized courses was less. Okay.
So if you don't have a lot of experience, go ahead.
To Yanez's question, yes, you'll always find people coming from different backgrounds, and as I mentioned in IT, as long as your analytical skills are there, right, you'll pick up the material, and once you pick up the material, that's what's important, right? And you will see that a lot of our exercises, especially the one on installation and upgrade out of the client, that these are like mini projects you would do at a client site, right? At a client site, doing an upgrade and going through all the gyrations of it, or doing a homogeneous system copy, right, and building the documentation around it is months together, right? It doesn't happen overnight. So, and that's how, it has to be shown or depicted on your resume, right? Saying that, you have done it, you can do it, and what your exposure to those technologies is, right? So we are not teaching just basic exercises. We do basic stuff as well, right? So we're not just saying that, SU01, go and create a user, right? 2-minute exercise, right? You'll do that exercise as well, but from there things just become more complex, more deeper, and more intense. So the answer to your question is yes, do not worry, as long as you have the passion, the analytical skills, and the intent. That's what it takes to make it in this field. Yeah. So
my question is, since you have some clients, after the training, what is the chances of getting a placement through you, with you, after the training in any of, the simple thing is, how do you get a placement after the training?
Yeah. So it is for a person who shows the skills and gets certified, it's relatively easy, right? So I will just kind of throw the question back to you slightly differently, is how easy it's for Yanez to get certified within 6 weeks of finishing the training. Will he study 20 hours a week? Will he make sure that he gets certified in both Basis and HANA? And to that, I expect the answer should be yes, Ajay, I'll make it happen. And if that happens, you will see everything else is relatively easy. Because getting those certifications, getting to know the material is where the hard work is, right? To your point, yes, we've got direct clients. We ourselves are always in need for resources who can work either on-site or remotely, right? So we, in fact, need people at all points of time, but people whom we know that they are not going to ruin a system, they have learned the basics, they have gotten certified, and they're going to understand what's being asked and be able to deliver to it. Right?
Doing the certification, it's going to cost money to pay for the certification. So that's additional cost. Without the certification, is there any prospect of getting placement before certification?
I think it is very less because, as Raj mentioned earlier, your ability to convince potential employers and potential clients, is significantly higher, right? If you have an external certification, external meaning that a third party like SAP is certifying that, yes, this person knows the material. That is very, very important, right? That's why the focus is on your hardcore technology so that, you can make that mark, right? Yes, you have to spend money, but it's only $500, right? For investing in your career, that is nothing. It's less than an iPhone. Right? And this is my pet peeve, right? Anytime somebody says that, oh, can I get started and do certification later? There's no value in doing certification later. The value is only doing it before you get started, right? If a person has got 10 years of experience, what is he or she going to convince with saying that I got certified? There's nothing, right? Because your experience triumphs all of that, right? For a person who's getting started, that's where the value is. Okay. Sanjeev, I know in the past, yes. So what we have done is we have very selectively, and I think there was a previous question in it, we used to spend a lot of time on Oracle, right? So we have reduced the time which we spend on Oracle, and that time is going into HANA. Also, we had got some additional exercises and basis, which we have either curtailed or we have merged or we have made the process of giving that to you more efficient or driven it down to a homework as opposed to classwork so that we can pull in HANA, right? So HANA is a database technology, right? So most of the time which we are spending in HANA is coming at the expense of spending it on Oracle portion of the previous course. And again, the moment, whenever we have tried to increase the duration of the course from 8 weeks, we have seen that we cannot retain the focus of the class.
Has left the conference.
And it's too long for people to, carve out the time from, what they're doing in their life at that point in time, right? So if the moment it goes to 12 weeks, which would become 3.5 months, it's just very difficult. So our goal was, let's condense it, let's use the homework effectively, and introduce HANA in the mix, because that's what makes you more marketable. Harvey, can you provide? Yes, we can do it. That's not an issue. When implementing SAP, sizing is a critical step. Will that be covered? I need to be clear with that phase of implementing SAP. Charles, we don't spend a lot of time on SAP sizing, but if that's a specific request you have, I'm sure Raj can have a one-on-one with you to kind of walk you through SAP Quick Sizer. You must have noticed that we have already provided details for it in our knowledge base folder. Raj and I do sizing a lot because we are SAP architects, right? So we can easily, because there are certain things, you might have a need for, rest of the class might not, so we can introduce it as a one-on-one with you, or maybe introduce it as a homework, or provide documentation around it or samples around the Quick Sizer exercise so that you benefit from it. But the basic introduction to SAP sizing, how it's done, how is Quick Sizer used, can definitely be covered in the class. Not a big deal.
Yes, Ajay, just to add it, in fact, for the last batch, I did talk about the sizing a little bit using the Quick Sizer and things like that. Again, we can point you right in the right direction. Again, each company, especially with the SAP implementation, each implementation is different, because, requirements are changing, changes between the companies you are sizing. So you need to understand that one clearly, and then, use that tools effectively to come up with your sizing, right? So that's what we can point you in the right direction. Yes, we will talk about it, definitely we'll talk about this sizing overall at high level, yes.
It's a good question.
Yes, so Sanjay has this data provisioning, right? In fact, so what is data provisioning, right? So this is where, at the end of if you attend this session, you will know what exactly data provisioning is. Data provisioning is nothing but getting the data from a source system into the your HANA database or somewhere else. So basically, SLT is one of the data provisioning techniques, right? So it's a tool to provision the data. So yes, we'll talk about this and SLT in depth, yes. And there are other techniques as well, but we will just cover it. We'll just talk about it from the exam point of view. But SLT is more critical at this point.
And also you can subsequently attend the HANA modeling course where other mechanisms of data provisioning like BODS, Business Object Data Services, is going to be covered as well. Yeah.
Any other questions?
All right. Sorry, Raj, go ahead.
No, that's right. I'm just, I think it's we're getting already delayed, so we need to wrap this up, right? So any other questions from anybody? Feel free to, email back to Amol or me, myself, or Ajay, or to the group. We can respond to it, as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the system is available for you to, log in and take a look around. You can do it. Ajay, if you want to add anything else, I think we can conclude it.
No, nothing from my side. Raj, thanks a lot, and team overall, people who attended today, thanks a lot, and I really appreciate that you're taking a Saturday, and investing towards your career. Anything you do for your career always pays back in spades, right? So make sure that you do not fall back, right? You use this as a New Year resolution. Make sure you're investing towards the next step. And okay.
Yeah, so I just looking at the quickly go through these questions. Right, Ari, when is this next session? I believe at this point we haven't confirmed the dates, but most likely, obviously, right, next 2 weeks it's going to be holiday times. A lot of people traveling, and either because of Christmas holidays, they'll be spending with the families and friends. It's difficult. So what we are thinking is most likely during the first week or second week of January. We will, once we confirm the dates, Amol will notify you. Amol would be the point of contact. He will send out all the communication, anything related to the training, any changes, anything in the session. He will notify you promptly before, so you can plan accordingly, right? So Amol will notify you, but it's going to be in January, so that's for sure. Amol, Charles, check with Amol. He can, give you the options, whatever the options, he can walk you over and, take it up from there. Yes, yeah, we will post it. Again, this one, Amol will send you at the end of every week, right? So he will send out the information how to access this recording. He will send this information maybe within an hour or so. Once he has set up all the information, he will send it to you. All right. Thank you all. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Ajay Dhingra
has left the conference. Has left the conference.
Bologna.
Has left the conference.